At IQ, nutrition and wellness videos are meant to be informative and educational. They are not intended to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any disease or condition. It is not intended to substitute the advice, treatment, and/or diagnosis of a qualified licensed healthcare professional. Hello, everyone, again. This is Erin, and welcome back to my third video. I talked a little bit about why some people's food that is good for them and healthy for them can be other people's poisons. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about the stomach acid, because, you know, I talked about whether or not someone's body is able to break down their food and absorb the nutrients from those foods. And so I kind of wanted to dive a little bit into the stomach acid stuff today and talk, because when I started seeing my naturopath last June, I was eating, I knew that I needed to eat like organic foods. I knew I needed to eliminate gluten. And so I was doing some of those things, eating some of those vegan patties or plant-based type of diet stuff. And really, was seeing some improvement, but then just still like my stomach was almost hurt in a different way, or was just still not really able to digest food the way that I knew my body should be digesting food, if that made sense. And so whenever if we just back up a little bit, so whenever I was seeing my GI doctor, and I had an upper and lower GI scope where I went under anesthesia. They put a camera down both ends, and was really concerned about my upper GI the most, because I would get really bad heartburn, just pain all up in my ribs and my rib cage, and really just didn't know what was going on. And so whenever I had gotten scoped was before they figured out my gallbladder issues. And the GI specialist that I saw had done this scope, and I was completely just the whole way that I was treated by that doctor was so unkind, unprofessional. I have considered even going after him in a lawsuit, because it was just so traumatic for me. But ultimately he probably did what he does with most of his patients, and that is to, before he would talk to me, diagnose me, anything, try to help me whatsoever, he said that he needed to scope me. And so I went under. I had just gotten surgery done, I think 2 or 3 weeks prior to this upper and lower GI scope. And whenever I woke up from surgery, I was just really hoping that I would just finally have answers. And he comes in to talk to me, and in about 3 minutes, he is in there and he says, "Yep, you've got gastritis, you've got some ulcers, and you've got GERD, high stomach acid," which I've always been I have had high stomach acid, stomach acid issues and heartburn and stuff like that since I was a baby. I had reflux as a baby, would spit everything up. I knew that I had stomach acid issues, and so I was like, okay, just went with it, because it checked out, that makes sense. I've been diagnosed with that before. So he had put me on proton pump inhibitors, PPIs. And a lot of times that's just basically like a prescription acid blocker. It's going to block the production of any acid in your body, because I showed signs and symptoms of high stomach acid. So I get on these proton pump inhibitors, and this is whenever I was still very, very sick and not able to eat a lot. And so I was having reactions to medications that I had never had before. He put me on a PPI that basically I started having Raynaud's syndrome. I don't know if you've ever heard of Raynaud's syndrome, but like my whole fingers, just from here all the way down, were turning like stark white. Like as soon as I drank anything cold, took pieces of ice out of the freezer, like my whole fingers would go white. They would tingle, they would hurt. It was really, really strange. And it was almost like it was happening a little bit with my head. Like it felt like the oxygen wasn't able to go to my head. And so I was feeling like I was going to pass out. Basically, those medications gave me Raynaud's syndrome. It was whenever he says, no way could they be doing that to you. Cause I reached out to my doctor. Hey, this is what's happening. It started happening like a week after I started taking the medication. Do you think it could be Raynaud's syndrome? And do you think that it could be from taking this medication? No. It's not going to do that. It's not going to do that. So then I go to Google and I find medical studies where they've researched this, and that medication does cause Raynaud's syndrome. And so it was just like, beating my head against the wall. And long story short is I had stopped taking that medication, and I was just trying to figure out like which foods could trigger high stomach acid reflux. I was, cutting off my eating, like 3 hours before bedtime, trying to prop myself up in an upright position, was doing all these different things to try to reduce my stomach acid. And then whenever I started seeing my naturopath, of course, I wasn't on those medications anymore, but I was still having some of those issues. So tell me why the doctor had prescribed me medications and had diagnosed me with high stomach acid. My entire life, I've been diagnosed and treated for high stomach acid, and started seeing this naturopath, and all she had to do was ask me to drink a little baking soda and some water. It's called a 5-minute belch test. And whenever I went in for my first appointment, I was just in tears, because she said, I know you're going to think this is strange, but because you've been told this your whole life, but based off of the baking soda test and all of your symptoms and everything, I actually suspect, she didn't diagnose me at that time, but she said, I suspect that you have very low stomach acid. It sounds to me like your body is not creating stomach acid. And so we can fix that. And I was just completely blown away. I've been told high stomach acid my whole life, and I'm not making any. Why am I taking medication that's stopping my stomach acid production? And why are they even not considering that it might be too low instead of too high? And anyway, it sounds like the majority of people that do have stomach acid problems are high. And because I'm not the majority, I got basically thrown into that gap in our healthcare. I didn't fit the normal horse bill. I was a unicorn, I guess. And so I started taking some supplements that kind of helped resolve. I still take them. They help my stomach acid production. They're the way that my naturopath explained it is they were like my stomach acid training wheels for my body. And it was insane. Like I started taking these supplements, and I started like actually belching after I ate food. And that was, I guess I didn't even realize how little I had belched and then I wasn't belching until I was, and it felt so good. It felt so good to burp. So that's just a little bit about stomach acid, and it's super important that we get our stomach acid right, because if we have if our bodies aren't creating the right amount of stomach acid and is not dumping into our stomach properly, then we cannot break down and digest our food and absorb the nutrients from those foods. It doesn't matter if you're eating a completely range-free, gluten-free, soy-free, whatever diet, like organic, whole foods, you can be eating the cleanest diet. Let me repeat that. You can be eating the cleanest, most organic, healthy diet, but if you do not have the proper amount of stomach acid to break down those foods and nutrients, your body's not getting any of those nutrients, and most likely you have malnutrition going on. So next video on malnutrition. I hope this video helps someone out there, and I will talk to you soon. Stay well.